Welcome back to my channel. It's been a very long time because I've just been going through it, but I'm finally in my new apartment, which I'm super happy and excited about. A lot of things have changed since the last video that I uploaded. I'm glad that you're here. So I'm just gonna get into today's video. I don't have Wi-Fi at the moment and I still have to install it. Earliest I can get it in is probably like Friday. So I'm gonna have to go off script a little bit and just do it from memory, from the notes and script and outline that I wrote for this video in particular. I was initially going to make this video about Pretty Little Thing and the fashion aspect of it, but I think there's just a lot of things going on right now in the world that it's more than just obviously a rebrand of this fast fashion company. I think there's a lot of things that correlate to one another, so I'm just gonna spew my thoughts for a little bit about how we got to where we are today, which a lot of people are concerned about our future, the future of the United States, and just like how we're going to be able to survive a lot of things that have been going on. I want to set the stage a little bit because a lot of people are high-key stressing for a valid reason about housing or affording things. Like I saw something on Instagram that said not a single state in the US where someone works 40 hours can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. And that is very concerning because I think we should be able to afford housing, and that comes into about minimum wage, and if it's a livable wage, also just like the laws and work wages things in each state is different, obviously, and I think that goes a lot to say that we are not in a good place right now, and I think a lot of people can see that, but half of the country cannot see that for whatever reason. And I think, you know, a lot of people are starting to notice that Gen Z is turning into boomers in the fact that they are super conservative. I had made a video about Gen Z and millennials recently, and I was on TikTok and I was scrolling and people had the same consensus that Gen Z is much like boomers and their beliefs and just like conservatism, or to get into child wives and just the whole what conservatism is and how it affects people.
Gen Z and boomers are so similar, and from being a manager and witnessing their logic, it's exactly the same. Millennials aren't like either of them. Case in point, today I have a Gen Z person who I manage. I manage a team of people, and she has to service these clients. It's a contract. We are legally contracted to service these clients on specific days. She just messages me and is like, I'm sick. We can just add another day. She didn't even ask me. She's like, we can just add another day and service them like next week. That's not how the law works. That's not how contracts work. That's not how a business services clients. Granted, I'm the manager, I'm going to have to service them for free myself, but that's not the point of this. And today, a boomer that I manage also came at me with similar logic. I have to run an errand from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and they're not open tomorrow, so can we just move the class to tomorrow? The entitlement and the thought process of the entire world, even the law, revolving around you is blowing my fucking mind. I'm still reeling from it right now as I'm making this video. The millennials, they show up. They do their job, they fucking get off. We've seen it all, we've experienced it all, from very early childhood up through our adulthood, knowing fully well we're not going to get good jobs when we get out of college because we've really dealt with it all. So they show up and they do their job no matter what, and then they leave. I'm just, what the fuck?
And why I think Gen Z gravitated towards this, and we can see the conservatism in a lot of our daily things that we don't tend to think about, which I never really thought about, which is like our media, fashion. There's a lot of correlation, music, like there's even like this thing, like I didn't really think of it this way, but like Gen Z being like, oh, I'm going to the club in my Milk Maiden outfit, like very conservative kind of dressing, styling of things. Like there's a lot of things that like point to conservatism, which is really interesting because Gen Z tends to be, or we like to think Gen Z is kind of this more liberal. People say they're woke. They go to college, so they're not conservative because college kind of means that you have an education, a higher education that basically teaches, you know, basic empathy, human rights, things like that. And conservatives tend to label college students as woke or indoctrinated by yada yada yada. I think that seeing this many Gen Z be conservative is also telling in the media that we consume. Obviously, we have to talk about the tariffs because this video, like I said, is initially about fashion and how this would impact like fashion and correlations, and we're gonna get into the indexes. Trump had obviously put tariffs on other countries that we usually trade with, China included. Pretty much everyone hates us at the moment. No one wants to do anything with us. Like, I believe China and Mexico started like a trade partnership or, you know, did something. And how this affects like us is that everything's gonna be obviously more expensive. Like, people are already starting to say stock up on rice, on, why am I blanking out, coffee, someone said wine. I'll put the TikTok in here, you guys can read. This is basically what's been going on, like on my For You page, is like we're going into a recession or even a Great Depression. Now, I'm not a historian, nor am I a poli-sci major or majored in that kind of thing or know anything about that. I know to a certain degree, but like not in a very knowledgeable way, very surface level. So do your own research when I say this. There are signs in fashion that could be considered correlating to this conservatism and to our route as an economy of going towards a recession or a Great Depression or some sort of economic turmoil. A lot of it we can see in our fashion choices. So this brings me to the indexes. So you can search this up. I'll put the article that I got this from in the description. I might mess this up. I'm sorry, I'm going off the top of my head. I don't have internet, yada yada. You heard it. Okay. There are different indexes that indicate in the fashion world that the US economy will be going to turmoil. The first one is the Hemline index, which basically means that the longer the skirt, the more indication there's a recession or economic downturn. Shorter skirts mean that, supposedly in theory, that the economy is doing well. The example that this article uses is the time of booming 20s flappers where they wore shorter dresses, but in the Great Depression era they tended to wear longer dresses, hence the hemline is longer, hemline index. I think this is really prevalent to now because, like I said before, Gen Z's like, I want to wear whatever milk maiden outfit to the club now, and then other people like, oh, no one wants to dress up to the club, everyone's like dressing like they're gonna go watch it Nosferatu. Like, I think this became normalized obviously during the pandemic because we had so much free time and people, you know, were becoming influencers, becoming creators or whatever you want to call it, and creating these kinds of aesthetics and mood boards and Pinterest and whatever the fuck. So I think that has a lot to do with it, and I'm not really sure why Gen Z started to go towards a conservative route, but I think it's because for a long time, you know, liberalism was seen as like more accepting, and Gen Z tends to be a very critical kind of generation, and I can see it, you know, like a lot of people are saying Gen Z cannot stand personality or being different or like accepting others for who they are. Even though we did a lot of these social justice kind of movements and things like that, I still have a hard time like believing that kind of sentiment, but I do think online it's very prevalent that Gen Z are like pretty mean to each other, you know, and let alone to other people. They bully online. I've been, you know, experiencing that get a lot since I have put myself out there on the internet, and I think that a lot of them are super insecure with themselves, which is obvious with anyone who like bullies someone, is that they're very insecure. You know, it's just them like not being happy with themselves, so they need to find fulfillment in making someone miserable. I think that Gen Z going towards this conservative kind of route really aligns with that kind of thinking, and because conservatism is so like structured and rigid, I think it kind of goes with that kind of sentiment, if that makes any sense at all. So the next index is the nail polish index. In theory, it was said that recession was indicated by the soaring sales of nail polish. Obviously, people are going towards more DIY kind of things, especially like with these luxuries like hair, nails, or lashes. And there's this one Allure article that I was gonna quote from, but I don't have it with me, but it's from 2011, I believe. They're basically writing about how they noticed that there's a jump in sales of nail polish in the UK, and that this was an indication of a recession. And I think today that kind of more translates to press-on nails, which I have been a press-on person forever. It's much cheaper getting like $10 press-ons from like Target compared to getting your nails done at the salon and then having to tip and stuff like that. So a lot of people are straying from that. Same thing with like getting eyelash extensions. People are preferring falsies or just lash clusters, which are individual and you just put them on yourself. I think a lot of these things are also just like money saving, obviously, because people just don't have the means to be affording these kinds of luxuries, extra things that aren't necessities. You don't need to get your nails done, you don't need to get your hair done or your lashes, etc. I think this is a very good index to compare to, and I think translating it today in modern times would be those three things that I just listed. The next index is lipstick. The theory with this, I think it was someone from IBM, it might be another index, I might be wrong, but they theorized that the sale of lipstick going up also indicates a sign of recession, because women are looking towards or looking for other things that could be deemed as like, you know, a little treat to them, and that makes them feel good when they put it on, something that's not as expensive. However, today I feel like even drugstore like makeup sometimes is very expensive, and then like a luxury one would probably be like $50 maybe, if you can find that. Another index. And then I believe the last index that we're going to talk about is the heel index. So obviously theory is that during times of economic growth or economic stability, women tend to buy shoes that are flat and more comfortable. So it's choosing comfort over style or whatever you want to call it. But times of recession, women tend to wear higher heels. So the example that this article used is the fact that flappers wore very flat shoes, while in the Great Depression era, women tend to wear like higher pumps out with a thicker sole. So those are just some of the indexes. I believe there's more, so you can look into that if you want, but there'd be too many to list, honestly. You get the idea that some of the things in fashion can correlate to economic downturn and stuff, and I think it's interesting to look at this kind of correlation. Obviously, it's not 100% correct. I think it really varies, because personally, I've seen shoes very chunky and high. I feel like a lot of people opt for platforms, but I've also seen like hybrid shoe drops, like with sneakers and doing like a little ballerina flat kind of hybrid thing. There's just a lot of cool shoe drops out that I feel like don't really indicate a recession in my opinion, but I do think like the luxury services, like people are starting to do a lot of things DIY, etc., to, you know, combat the prices of things that they can't afford anymore. Where Pretty Little Thing comes in is that they rebranded and it became this cute, fun clubwear kind of brand. From their iconic like pink logo to this sophisticated, elevated, elegant, beige monochromatic colorways that it doesn't make sense. They went a complete opposite of what the branding was, and having such a strong branding like Pretty Little Thing and people knowing Pretty Little Thing. When I think of Pretty Little Thing, I think of pink, and I think of like those cutouts, clubwear things I would like wear out, you know, to a club. Like I don't know where else like I'd wear it, but I really love like the cutout bodysuits. That's how I kind of got introduced to that kind of thing. And yes, they are fast fashion, and I think it goes to show that fast fashion companies just really go towards anything that will make a profit. Pretty Little Thing, whoever was the trend forecaster, whoever's creative director, whoever's in those kinds of fields, noticed that, hey, conservatism is rising, so let's change our brand because this is gonna be out. I think another indicator in pop culture would be Kim Kardashian minimizing her BBL. Hey, BBL culture, BBL aesthetic, if you want to call it that. Basically, the Kardashian appropriating black culture, profiting off of it. And then now they're like, okay, well, that's not selling anymore. That's not trendy anymore. So let's do this elegant, clean girl. Like, even Kylie Jenner, I think, was the one that did like the milkmaid photo shoot. So a lot of things were showing in pop culture how things were going towards a more conservative route. We also have like the trad wives in like our social media and media about being a traditional wife, meaning just caring for your children and your husband, making food, homesteading is your sole purpose. I am not saying that people who do
This morning I asked my toddlers what they wanted for breakfast and they both said cereal, so cereal it was and we got started right away.
Have you ever asked yourself why it is that trad wives and other conservative female influencers who promote traditional gender roles have all the time in the world to make cereal from scratch, but somehow never seem to record themselves doing essential domestic labor like vacuuming, trying to get a particularly nasty stain out of a shirt, or scrubbing a toilet? When they are performing labor in these videos, it's always something that, strictly speaking, is unnecessary, and they are doing it the hardest way possible. Because the answer is that it is for show. It is all a performance. In his remarkably prescient 1899 book, The Theory of the Leisure Class, Thorsten Veblen coined the terms conspicuous consumption and conspicuous leisure, suggesting that those with wealth and power, no longer having any economic production to contribute themselves, instead contribute to the production and consumption of leisure. And those consumption practices, those leisure activities, are conspicuous precisely because that is how the leisure class signals their difference from the working class, signals their exceptionality and their superiority. They're not better than us because they can make their children cereal from scratch. They're better than us because they are so wealthy and well off that they have nothing more important to worry about. And if we were to ever see trad wives perform essential productive domestic labor, or see their husbands perform any domestic labor at all, that would in fact mark them as failures as trad wives. As Veblen wrote in 1899, again, he could have written it yesterday, application to productive labor is a mark of poverty and subjection. It becomes inconsistent with a reputable standing in the community. Because these videos are not instructional. They are maybe inspirational, but they are always performative. This is not real labor. This is symbolic labor. It is nothing more than social signaling that this woman and her family belong to the leisure class. And it is also how she builds and signals her value if you are the sort of person who operates within an exchange economy that assigns high and low value to human beings. Because her value to her husband is not in her ability to care for the home or care for the children, right? Anyone who is able to engage in this level of conspicuous leisure has somebody that they are paying to do all of those things. No, her value is instead in her ability to perform the role of trophy wife, and to be the ultimate realization and personification of her husband's socioeconomic prowess. Because trad wives are conspicuous consumers, yes, but it is the audience's consumption of trad wives that truly makes them valuable to their husbands.
Are terrible people. In intersectionality of feminism, you have the right to choose what you think is the best path for you. However, I do think it's dangerous that some women have all the faith in their husband to take care of them financially. However, if the husband chooses to leave their wife for whatever reason, he's left basically with nothing. And I've seen a lot of people comment on these kinds of, trad wife commentary that they did go through that situation and they wished that they had gone to college, had gotten a job, had some sort of savings, instead of relying solely on the man to provide for them for the rest of their lives.
I'm an ex-trad wife. The first thing I do every morning is check to see if my child support's been paid yet. God damn it! He is such a deadbeat. I'm an ex-trad wife, so I'm heading into Ace Hardware on a Saturday instead of relaxing or playing golf because I work 7 days a week to support my kid. I'm an ex-trad wife. I work 3 minimum wage jobs to just pay my rent.
I'm an ex-trad wife. I'm 15 years away from retirement and my bank account is currently overdrawn by $200.
I'm an ex-trad wife. After a long morning of working on a furniture flip, I'm now getting ready to go to my second job. I'm an ex-trad wife. I can't afford to buy myself shoes and my kids shoes, so I've just been kind of like sharing all of my teenager stuff for the past 5 years. I'm an ex-trad wife. I do not ever, under any circumstances, ever go into the grocery store before checking my bank account to make sure that I have money. I'm an ex-trad wife. I live in my uncle's guest house because no money, no credit, no job history. I had a sucky divorce attorney, and my ex is a deadbeat. I'm an ex-trad wife. I'm low on gas, but I'm not quite out, so I'll wait until I get my paycheck on Wednesday. I'm an ex-trad wife. After my misogynistic douchebag of an ex-husband finally left me for the younger version of me, I leveled up to a sexy, supportive partner who folds my laundry and brings home takeout. I love you.
And I think in any situation, man or woman, it is risky to rely on your partner for solely for monetary and financially, like monetarily, financially, just like dependent on one person, and anything could happen. So I think that it's not a jab at people who are choosing to do homesteading as a lifestyle. I feel like there should be a right to choose, not you being forced into the homesteading lifestyle like ballerina farm. I believe she said that she wanted obviously to be a ballerina. I never knew that, and that's why she chose that name. And a lot of people say Nara Smith. However, I don't think Nara Smith is necessarily a trad wife. I think she's more of a person who has a team and creates content, and she's literally a model and does social media. So I don't think that really falls into trad wife, because she wouldn't have a job and would rely solely
Imagine
on her
everyone
husband,
thinking
Lucky.
you're a traditional housewife, but you're actually not. Now, you might know her for making things from scratch. Let's talk about who is Nara Smith. So Nara Smith was born the 27th of September in 2001. She's a South African-born, also German fashion model. So when she was a baby, she moved to Germany, and she said that she can speak German and English. She has 2 younger siblings, a brother and a sister, and then a half-brother from her dad's side. So she began modeling at 14 years old. She was discovered through a campaign called We Love Your Jeans by IMG Models. Then at 18 years old, she moved to California, of course, due to modeling. And she's also talked about how people, would tell her, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. You should be partying right now. Mind you, she's 23 years old. And she's like, I already did that when I was like 16. I partied, I drank. It's just not for me. And when she was younger, she was never like a dress girl. She always, just kind of liked to wear just pants. So in 2019, she met her husband. So they met at Milan Fashion Week, and he saw her, and it was love at first sight. And he asked her to be his girlfriend, and she was like, actually, I take this stuff very seriously. And he's like, yeah, me too. And then in 2020, they got married. So she was already a stepmom because Lucky has a kid from his previous relationship. And when Nara Smith got pregnant, she was diagnosed with asthma and eventually with lupus. So that is when she really thought about what is she putting in her body. So she decided to start making things from scratch. And a lot of her kids, some of her kids, loved snacks from scratch. So she started by making these simple like sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on TikTok. And then they eventually blew up. And then she was like, I was getting attacked just by posting like cooking videos. So she has talked about how they are still like learning about their faith, since they're Mormon. But she says we're not like 100% Mormon. Like we're figuring it out. We're learning. So she gets 10 hours of being able to make content and everything while Lucky watches the kids. So they have a 50-50 relationship. She's talked about. We split the responsibilities 50-50. I am a working mom. A lot of people don't know this. Like, she works to make these videos, do all these campaigns and everything. She's working. So she was like, I'm not a traditional housewife. I have a passion for cooking, and that's how I show my love to my husband. That is pretty much it. And she did not get married in a Mormon temple. And she says that, she tries to go to bed by 10 p.m., that her videos are pretty easy to make. People just like to talk and attack for no reason. And sometimes she just can't help but read every single comment. She's like, when I was 14 and I was modeling, I was traveling all over the world. Like, I partied, I did this, you know? So, I mean, I love watching her videos. They're very entertaining, and yeah.
However, people were shocked to see that Lucky's repost was in support of Trump. So that was a big thing, but also like, why are we surprised? They also lived in Texas, so I don't think that should have been a surprise. Like, at all. Like, why were we surprised? So, like, the conservatism that we're seeing right now with everything in media and back to Pretty Little Thing, that they're going to this route of like no individualism. Like, I think that's kind of the core of it, is that like conservatism fears like individualism, critical thinking, and critical thought of like everything. I don't know, like I do not know how to explain it in a way that just like, because in my head it just makes sense. Like, I don't know like why I have to explain like everyone should have like human rights, everyone should like be able to live the life that they live as long as they're not hurting anyone. And I just think like conservatism really just says this is the only way that is correct to live your life, this is the only way women should correctly live their life, and like only one religion should be ruling over the country, which is historically patriarchal. You guys know what I'm saying. It's right there. I think that things that have been happening, like, it's really prevalent, it's really obvious that we're in this time of very, 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 very obvious conservatism in a lot of the things that we do. And I feel like because I'm in such like a bubble of only seeing content that I do like, which has to do with a lot of liberal leftist kind of ideas, I think that I personally can't see the conservatism, but when I delve out of that, I definitely do see it. Gen Z's contribution to that is that like they have the boomer mindset without the boomer money, because we are so screwed over from the pandemic, not only financially but also like mentally. Like, it was very hard for a lot of people just like socially, and I feel like a lot of people haven't gotten that socialness back or know how to interact with people. Like, it's just this weird like continuation of one thing after another. Like, I really feel like when the pandemic hit, that's when like everything just like shifted. Like, I don't know what it is, like everything just feels different, and just like maybe because the whole world like literally shut down and just like we did not know what was happening, and it was like a state of emergency, that like we found this escapism in TikTok, and then that conservatism like leaked into our media and stuff. I'm gonna also mention like Lana Del Rey. So it's like a music example of conservatism, like Lana Del Rey. People are saying that.
I'm really sick right now, but I saw this on my For You page and I couldn't help myself, so here we go. I wrote this article back in 2019 for broads@yale.com, Broad Recognition, as a review of Lana Del Rey's then new album, Norman fucking Rockwell. Initially, I actually liked this album because I felt like she was reclaiming a lot of the old tropes that she had used for self-objectification and kind of turning them on their head and reasserting like her own agency in this work. But in the article, I talk about a review that was written by Ann Powers for NPR, where Ann Powers said something that I think is quite non-controversial, which was that in the past, Lana Del Rey has kind of put up this image or facade of like the Americana aesthetic. And then Lana Del Rey got really mad on Twitter and responded by saying like, I'm not fake, like this is real, like everything I've ever put out has been like the real me. Which sounds insane because Lana Del Rey is literally a stage name. Her real name is Elizabeth Grant. She was raised very rich. She moved to a trailer park to write songs and don this like grungy Americana aesthetic that she later adopted into things like Rye. And if you remember this era of Lana Del Rey, you also remember how it coincided with the 2013 through 15 Tumblr Lolita aesthetic, which was very much pushed by Lana Del Rey in her first album. And just in general, the over-sexualization of like children on Tumblr. And so I talk about this in the article by comparing it to a film that came out around the same time, which was Spring Breakers by Harmony Korine, which is one of my favorite movies. Spring Breakers also played into this trope by casting former Disney stars like Selena Gomez and Vanessa Hudgens in these very controversial roles. But the argument that I make is that Spring Breakers just does a much better job of deconstructing a lot of the aspects of American consumer culture that it portrayed. For example, the character Alien representing the cultural appropriation of Black aesthetic. Some people called Spring Breakers problematic, but I think it very clearly critiques these systems. Lana Del Rey's song Florida Kilos was actually co-written by Harmony Korine and utilizes a lot of the same themes as Spring Breakers. But Del Rey feigns a reality that is not her own, crooning about guns and criminality while being the private school-educated daughter of a literal millionaire. Kareen, on the other hand, creates a surrealism around his work with an empathetic reverence, reconciling the distance between artist and subject. The girls of Spring Breakers represent a specific liminality of white middle-class existence. Not rich enough to party in Miami with the Lizzie Grants of the world, they resort to crime and violence to incorporate themselves into the all-American world of binge drinking and endless consumption. Other works by Harmony Korine, like Kids and Gummo, present class dynamics and reality and poverty in a way that Lana Del Rey is just not able to. Because while Harmony Korine is documenting these things, Lana Del Rey is attempting to appropriate these things for herself, even though she's the one who has benefited from being on the other side of these dynamics, i.e. calling out other women of color artists for sexualizing themselves when she built her whole career off it.
She's like super conservative, and she's like had this kind of branding of like old Americana, especially like with Born to Die, and even recently like with her newer album, she's always had the topic and lyricism of referencing old Americana and romanticizing obviously a lot of older relationships and just like living in the US, being a young feminine woman. And I think a lot of people are realizing like, oh yeah, that is pretty conservative coded. Oh, that's the only way I knew how to like say that. Do you guys? So anyways, forget I said that. Okay, yeah, but she's definitely conservative values now, I would say, and even who like she's married to, there's a lot of conservative undertones. Someone else that people mention is Chaperone, because she's like said things, all right, allegedly. I'm not saying I agree with this, okay, so don't come at me, but people have said like her conservative roots have showed in certain ways.
Listen, I don't care what Chaperone said about children, how hard it is to have children. I think that is true, and I think that there is a lot of stigma against women, against mothers, about not admitting that motherhood is hard. I don't know why, but what I'm more upset about is to have a platform like she does and to be so vocal about the election in such a harmful way, and then to now suddenly it's just, I have no opinions on politics, I'm just a pop star. And I'm like, I also think it's really difficult to make your whole identity, I'm queer, I'm in your face, and being queer is inherently political. And I think in this time, this is not the time to be taking a back seat when things get hard or because you got backlash. You can't make your whole personality about being abrasive and then not be able to handle the fallout. We all need to be speaking up as loudly as possible.
Also just her like as a person, like people are like she just doesn't seem like a good person, or always seems like irritated or seems like entitled. But there are a lot of people that are, you know, that are celebrities that are like also secretly conservative, at least from what I've heard. Also just like Lana Del Rey, going back to her like romanticizing like church, and then like there's a lot of like fashion brands as well, so I guess this is a good segue into like the fashion part that like Gen Z it girl kind of brands that are super trendy. The one that comes to mind is God's Favorite. I'm pretty sure if you're like into like Depop and fashion or whatever, you have seen God's Favorite. Also, My Mom Made It. I'm thinking of the other one. God's Favorite is an example because we're seeing a lot of conservative motifs in the fashion world as well. One of the motifs being the camouflage, not like the baddie like kind of camouflage in 2019 King Kylie era. It's more like, I'm going to go hunt deer for dinner and we're gonna skin it, go put on your camouflage kind of thing. And I feel like this is a common motif, and also in fast fashion has picked it up too, obviously, because it's been like popular. But it's kind of like one of God's favorite like popular kind of collection, I think it's collection that they have, but I see a lot of people wear it, and this like camouflage thing has been like trending for quite a bit. And also going into like men in particular wearing like workwear that does not suit their occupation or is needed by their occupation. Like if you go to Silver Lake right now, you'll see like 20 guys wearing like some Bass Pro Shops hat that they found thrifted and paid like $30 for it, and some like Carhartt memorabilia, some Carhartt, I don't know what I'm saying, Carhartt jeans and a jacket or whatever, or some sort of obscure workwear or really baggy pants with a bunch of like work I just can't. So I think like those kinds of like blue collar jobs kind of work where also like those are switched to like conservatism and conservativeness concerning blue collar jobs, or like even like mimicking being a hunter in the South. Like I couldn't even tell the difference between the Bass Pro Shops like stuff between God's Favorite and all these other fast fashion brands, Urban Outfitters. Like it's everywhere. And I'm just starting to realize like, oh yeah, that's kind of weird. Even the fact that it says God's Favorite, it's using like this religious kind of motif and underlying thing to kind of be mocking also. I feel like Gen Z does that a lot, is like taking things over from childhood. So for religion, for example, in church, a lot of people are starting to use that as like reclaiming it, but also still falling on the line with like conservativeness. That makes sense. Saying like something like tongue-in-cheek like God's Favorite, obviously the brand that's like making thongs anti-sex, not very religious in a traditional sense. Who knows, they could be, but you get what I'm saying. I hope so. Okay, well, and I think in the fashion world, obviously we see like the clean girl aesthetic and like the minimalism. Like it's just so boring. It's boring, and like there's no like individuality, there's no like line anymore, because like everyone's just like trying to survive, or like trying to like live like day by day, like just survive the day and then work like 40 hours and then still have a social life and then still like take care of yourself. It's like, what are we supposed to do? Like we're headed towards a path of just like destruction and just like not being able to come back from like a lot of this. Like it's so like existential to like think about it, you know. Like we could go in a different direction, but I'm just a person in my apartment right now. I'm filming this video, guys. I don't have all the answers, but I found a lot of things interesting about this conservatism in Gen Z and in our fashion, in our media, and things that like we consume. Luckily I'm in California and in LA, so you know, people consider it generally safe from things like not having access to abortion or women's health care. LA is a sanctuary city, and I just think like at this point like California can just become its own country. Honestly, that'd be great, and everyone else can live wherever they want to live. Like why can't everyone like just like split apart and then we just go our separate ways, because we don't want each other anyway. I think that's basically all I had written in my notes. I think I covered everything that I wanted to talk about, but I do think it's really concerning that our generation is leaning more towards conservative. And I know that it's been like kind of a hush-hush thing for a while that like Gen Z was like voting for Trump or voting conservative. Also, I think that Gen Z definitely had a very big part in this conservative shift that we've seen, because I feel like for the past like at least 10 something years, things were pretty liberal, or at least like centrist. Yeah, we did have like a Republican president and whatever, you know, but I feel like this is just like extremism, and I feel like so extreme that everyone is seeing it. I feel like it's a bipartisan thing, besides like the very whatever percent of people that actually voted for this. I really personally see Gen Z as like a very social justice kind of generation, but obviously like not all of them. I feel like maybe it's just like a very loud minority, maybe, and maybe it's just the state that I live in the city that I live in. Let me know what you guys think in the comment. I really think there's a lot of things that contribute to this. Like it's just so interesting to see, but also it's very terrifying, because it's like this isn't just a case study. Like we're literally like living in this shit, you know. Like the little thing, rebranding, is just like another thing that fast fashion brands do, is just like they go where the profit is going. So they see that it's going towards conservatism, they see that H&M has been like beige and black and white and just like neutral minimalistic colors, and they followed where the money went. So the money is going towards those things. Also, I do want to mention like Shein and Temu, obviously it's gonna get more expensive. Like someone said that they put something in their cart and it was like super expensive once they like found out like their location was the United States. So not excited for all of the essentials being hiked up a bunch. Not really excited for that. Not really excited for anything, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you think about the pretty little thing rebrand, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Can't feel a single thing. Say you didn't feel it when you kissed me. Why you got red cheeks and high? When you try so hard to be different, so stuck in